welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Parents and Govey community, we appreciate it. I'm Alan Rossi. I'm chair of the Creative Writing Department, and these are our winter readings featuring our senior class. Before we get started, silence your cell phones, please. I don't know why I held my hand up like that. The international, yes, quiet your cell phones. You can feel free to take pictures, but there'll be some maybe time for photos at the end as well. Okay, you have a little oh, there it is. That's why I said it. And it threw me off, and I don't even know where I am. Let's start again. I'm Alan Rossi. No. I'm going to direct you to your program for just a minute. It's just a list of our students, our readers tonight. It's in alphabetical order. It's not the order they'll be reading in, but it's just a little memento for you to take with you. There is a QR code on the back. This year we've had guest artists, a visit from renowned international author Ron Rash. We'll be having poet Sue Cho in the spring, literary agent Saren Adams in the winter, and hopefully a couple other guests that I can't name yet as well. It's extremely important for our students to learn from these guest writers, and we couldn't do it without your support. So if you're so inclined, scan that code, and it'll take you to a page to help us support the guest artist program. And if you've already supported it, thank you so much. Okay, now let me say a little bit about this senior class. They're pretty good. Okay, Maddie Thompson. No. Okay, these seniors have been working for a year and a half in all genres. They've now taken multiple classes in fiction with me, nonfiction with Scott Gould over here, poetry with Emily Cinquemane, also over here. They've also taken a year and a half of playwriting with Austin Wilson. And if there's one thing that really sums up this class to me, it's this: dedication and love of the written word. These students write in vastly different styles, with vastly different voices, and with vastly different interests. And you'll hear all that tonight. Unique individuals who have found their unique voices and who love language. They're funny, fun, serious, dark, melancholy, ironic, sincere. Their writing runs the whole gamut of style and human experience, and you'll see much of that tonight. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll get an accent. Accents are sort of floating around the department. We've had posh English, a French accent's been coming out. I'm hoping to hear something tonight. But what is much more difficult to see, and what you probably have heard some version of, but don't get to experience every day, is just how much these students love language, story, craft, and understand the notion that people have a real need to share and make art in order to be fully human. In other words, these students are dedicated to and clearly love their art. You probably have heard about a great showing at Young Arts. There have been numerous publications from this class as well, and I know there are more to come in the future. But what most impresses me about this group of students is their understanding that literature is about something bigger than all of that. It's about sharing something unique and deep about the human experience. And I can't stress how rare it is that people of such a young age both understand that notion and engage with it at the level that this class does. It's this that I'm most proud of about the class: their dedication and love of literature for the sake of literature. And so let's hear some of that literature now. Without further ado, Maddie Thompson.
Hey y'all, my name is Maddie Thompson, and instead of doing something that would make my parents proud, I got a tattoo and became a comedy writer instead. So here's a piece I wrote titled "My Plan as the Next New York Rat Czar." Please laugh, it boosts my ego. Thank you. As a high school senior, I'm at a pretty crucial point in my life. I'm having many conversations about my future and the possibilities in front of me for higher education and career paths, and in every conversation, I discuss the only future I can see for myself. There's only one job I want, one career that I have been crafted specifically for. This will be my magnum opus, my great finished symphony. Ask me what I want my future job to be, and I'll tell you. I want to be the next New York City rat czar. For those uneducated on the position, let me enlighten you. Back in October 2022, The mayor of New York City held a press conference to discuss his plans and goals for his term. He made a lot of general claims about cleaning up New York, but there was one quote in particular that spoke to the people. He said, "Everyone that knows me knows one thing. I hate rats." And in one foul swoop, war was declared. The rats that have once ruled the Big Apple have a judgment day coming, and in April 2023, their executioner was decided, and Kathleen Karate was crowned the Rat Tsar. Her duties are many, all pertaining to the elimination of the rats who have made home in New York City. She's shown that being the Rat Tsar is no small task. Now you may ask me, hey Maddie, you're an 18-year-old girl from the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. How could you in any way be suitable for the position of NYC's one and only Rat Tsar? And here, my friends, is where my political genius shines through. For what I lack in general life experience, knowledge of rats, knowledge of how to catch rats, knowledge of New York City, knowledge of rat social habits, knowledge of human social habits, knowledge of how to ride a bike, knowledge of my multiplication times table, so on and so forth, I excel in diplomacy. To prove my skills for the job, I will provide you with my 6-step plan to eliminate all of rat kind in New York City. Number 1, establish contact with the New York City rats humans are. This task is easier said than done. Despite my numerous attempts at cross-species communication, there still seems to be a lack of understanding between the rats and myself. But I will not secede to this minuscule roadblock. If we have a rat czar, then it would only make sense for the rats to have their own form of human czar. This czar will be our main point of contact in the journey forward. Number 2, officially declare war on the rats. According to the laws of American warfare, we cannot actually go to war without a unanimous decision from Congress and support from all 3 branches of government. Not to worry though. I'm currently in honors government class, so I have a pretty decent understanding of how to achieve unanimity in our current government. When we declare war, not if, when, the battle lines will be drawn and the rats will fall to their little rat knees at our might. Number 3, destroy the rats with psychological mind games. Think of the size of a rat, small, crushable, fragile. Now think of the size of a human being, big, strong, not crushable. The average rat brain is the size of a grape, smaller for Staten Island rats. And the average human brain is the size of 2 fists. With this pure, God-given advantage, the obvious solution to getting rid of our rodent enemies is to challenge them to the world's most intellectual mind game, competitive Candy Crush. The rats would be so confused by the game and enamored by the candy, they won't even notice as I mentally destroy them with my brilliant Candy Crush abilities. The casualties would be in thousands. Number 4, infiltrate the rat community from the inside. They'll never know what hit them until they see me on the rat throne. With help from the RIA, Rat Intelligence Agency, I would infiltrate the rat system of government from an entry-level position, slowly making my way to the top at any means necessary. Bribery, blackmail, coercion, you get it. This would take a long amount of time, but I'm prepared to make that sacrifice and fully immerse myself in my undercover role. They'll never see it coming. Number 5, fall in love. I mean, have you seen the Rat King's dreamy eyes? With that gaze you can just get lost in. His smile, the way he chatters his teeth, that lovely pizza dinner we had overlooking the city skyline. He's just thoughtful and considerate and kind. I didn't go into this mission expecting love, but I'm a changed woman by the end of this. The Rat King has made me a better, well, me. Number 6, raise a white flag. It's after my inside infiltration mission with the rats I realized just how truly misunderstood they are. They all want the same thing that we want, love. As well as pizza and control of New York City, but love is a big factor. The rats don't have to be our enemies. We should have never started this war in the first place. In our hatred of those different from us, we lost sight of what makes a rat czar, diplomacy. The rats did nothing to us besides bringing disease, taking our food, making a generally unsafe living environment, and upset people, etc. So, with my future career as the next New York City rat czar, I promise to ensure a safe connection between the humans and rats for a foreseeable future. This is the way we move on in an honorable society. And with that, I, Maddie Thompson, declare peace in our time, a future of dignity, diplomacy, love, and respect, and rats and humans living together in harmony. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nora Bowers, and I'm from Easley. I'm going to be reading 2 poems. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Tender and Wild, a Memorial. I'm 17 for 1 week more, and I am scared. Like when I broke a glow stick against my palm, a pack I found buried in my closet, stashed away with, I'll use this someday. remembering and always forgetting and slipping them into a bin again. They were hiding next to sticky sparkle spider socks, snagged from my grandmother's dresser drawer, and bits of bluebird wings I peeled from the sidewalk like Velcro. I picked them up with chubby baby fingers and clutched them tight. I am outgrown like these shoes. Oh, I squeezed and squeezed until the sides of my feet were purple plum skin. Now, at 17, I am strong, and I can throw my notebook and break the spindly spinal bones. Of course, remember that I did not call it that until I was 14, because before that it was my journal, and before that it was a diary, and before that it was biting at the scab on my cheek and drawing outside the lines. I took the glow sticks out of their perfect cardboard bed frame and cracked them all at once, and dear God, is it over? What have I done? Am I monstrous now that I've created such destruction? I am 17 and I stare at my hands and think of that glowing goo shattered like blood, the beauty and disturbance. I hold myself when I miss the fluorescent, weary cracks of the glow sticks, clutching my belly raw like something has left a womb I made safe. On soft nights like these, my lungs are too loud. Their dead silent stillness like the bioluminescent beaches where the sand glows blue, blue, blue. I wonder if they, the beach and the glow stick, are maybe cousins or maybe neighbors, maybe reaching for opposite sides of the same rusty canned tomato paste shelf of a rundown grocery store. I am 17 and I want to make myself stay this way forever. Like now, watch me. I am smearing green paint on my neck and forgetting 5 foot 5 inches, 115 pounds, and how 5 years before this moment I was scared of the scale in my parents' bathroom. But at 17, I am content with how I am. Sometimes my bones ache with growing pains and I hold them together, saying, no more, no more. You've gone far enough and I am proud. I tell this to my creaking knees and my flame-burning ankles and the hair dripping down my neck and my alligator leather skin pulled tight by the tendons on my thumbs. A girl I loved so much told me she adored them, and she'd trace them with her cold, slender fingers and talons. I hold my hands together like a honeyed-over prayer when I sleep, and remember when she let me kiss her, and she is so very forgetful, but I think of it for her. I am 17, and when I look up, I remember the glow stick, burning, enraged, and spreading out over my hands like oil slick, radioactive pus, like how the universe is, a mother whose children cry the name of a God who forgets, but she remembers. She remembers that there is nothing special about that glow stick except for my willingness for there not to be. I am 17 and I am suspended, and I am more than I ever have been, knowing that I will miss the age of no more first like cigarettes and legality, instead the age of starting fights until my cheek burns with a smack because I am sneaky, so I get a kiss to coat it like a lollipop that makes us forget about the vaccines. The age where I sing old songs and only talk of aging. Nothing more than talk, because talk is just talk and just talk. 17 is greater than all the rest, multiplying and dividing back into itself again until it leaves tenderness in the world. There is still tenderness in the world. And my second poem is, Soon we will be on our ways, an ode to my roommate. I tell you that your new teeth make you look cheeky, and you pull your lips back like a cat and purr something sly at my face. I am watching you and saying nothing, balancing on the toilet seat with my knees pulled to my chest, and you shave your chin better than anyone else. You are as precise as you always are, tapping the corner of the sink with the razor blade, and the sound rings in my ears and fills me to the brim, and then I am laying in your bed again, watching bad movies on the ceiling, obscured by that crevice on the wall, knowing I will fall asleep and knowing you will never wake me. Sometime after, I stumble with a forgotten consciousness, and I find myself colder in my own sheets, thinking I left a dent and a shadow, and I will feel this way again someday soon. You once told me that I even draw like a writer, a plan with each stroke, like the next pain to evoke, and you are the better of us, smearing 2 bright oils onto thin paper and saturating your fingertips. You let me pretend to be a muse. You always painted me in blues, and I wonder what we will keep to ourselves. Your belly rising under my chest. We always breathe in opposition. When my medicine fades and my body breathes, and you tell me you saw it coming and let it be. Soon we will be on our ways, and I will fall asleep to the echo of your sleep-ridden, sweet-nothing nonsense, remembering how it felt when you held me on the floor by my elbows, clutching my burning belly ache and doing the dirty work for me, coating sourdough and honey when I couldn't eat. How you called me the leaf man when I decorated my hair with bits of the earth I found stuck to your sweater. How I woke up covered in bits of you, ink fish swimming across the lumps in my shoulder blades. How my professor once told me that when something has been softened and worn, as they will all see me soon as, the outcome being from love or the lack is often the same. But now you are clinking your razor against the ceramic. I hope the cause of my outcome is absolutely undeniable. I hope I find you in every place I live, hidden under eggshells between the holes of a drain, a broken dresser drawer, a cracked window, unapologetic warmth. You slide the blade under the water, it bubbles up and rolls into white. I hope I find a home like this again. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Allen. I'm from Piedmont, and this afternoon I will be reading the first essay in my short nonfiction chapbook called There Past the Old Bridge. There past the old bridge, through the tall green trees that even in winter aren't completely bare. There is a street that used to be covered with fireworks and cars in anticipation of holidays with family. On that street, there's a row of houses. And toward the end of that road, where an intersection begins to meet, sits a tired brick house. Driving by, it looks normal. But get out and step into the yard, look around, and there the memories scattered about. Head inside, and the stories of a family who grew there raid the place like termites. That house holds many memories of the grandmother who carried her 3 children as the grandfather helped build, brick by brick, the house where dreams would be born. After the house was built, the grandfather would argue with the grandmother about her parenting choices, how she'd take the kids out of choir because she didn't feel like picking them up, while he worked hard to support them. And the grandmother would holler about the grandfather's many infidelities as she worked and cooked for their children. That house where they bickered still stands as a monument of the family's struggles and their successes. 3 bedrooms, one crammed with the loss of the grandfather as he spent his final years there. But loss hadn't started inside. It started in the driveway, where the grandparents learned that their first son had died. But grief didn't consume them. They shared one of their greatest triumphs in the house. After the grandpa's death, one of his granddaughters went off to college and became the first in the family to attain a degree. That huge yard, now vacant, used to hold the giggles of little children that roamed, and the gardens the grandfather grew, and the many pets buried there. That house with its huge yard for all the children to play in, and the children's kids to play in, and then even some of the great-grandchildren as well, while the aunts grilled hot dogs and burgers for holidays. Now, the house is occupied by the grandmother and one of her youngest daughters. The house sits there, holding so many memories. Rarely does it get filled with new ones these days. But still, there's a house beyond the trees on a road where children once played and adults cackled, where memories, both good and bad, lay scattered, where it all started with the grandmother and the grandfather she now claims to have never loved. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corbin Irons. I'm from Greenwood, and today I'll be reading a fiction piece called Moving Right Out and In. But before I begin, I want to say something about where I was at whenever I wrote this piece. I wrote this piece during the period right after where the school says, "Welcome back, seniors," and right whenever they start saying, "Do your applications or else you're going to go nowhere." So I wrote this piece in commemoration of that. Moving right out and in. Amelia was horrified when she started moving out of her parents' house, picking up her entire life and having to shove it into 2 small cardboard boxes, picking up childhood toys and having to discard them, picking up every single thing that meant something to her and having to organize them into 3 piles labeled take, donate, and trash. It all gave her an intense anxiety, like she now had to reinvent herself. She shoved and forced herself to get over herself over and over again until she'd finally forced herself into the new life she barely even wanted. She had just finished high school, and her parents wanted her to leave the house. She was their only child, and they were ready for an empty nest. She picked up an old stuffed pig. She had named it Pinkie Pie, and she had slept with it every single night. When she woke up and found Pinkie Pie on the floor as a child, she took that as a bad omen, like a warning that the day would go poorly. Now, she tossed the stuffed animal into the donate pile, despite being held together by only a few strings. She picked up a photo of her and her ex-boyfriend and thought about how her life used to be so much simpler. When she needed money, she would ask her parents. When she needed a hug, she would ask her boyfriend. And when she needed a ride, well, she also asked her boyfriend. She regretted breaking up with her boyfriend. She regretted breaking up with him and also never getting her driver's license. After a moment, she picked up the first box, holding it and breathing in. Her lungs burned with grief as if she was burning in smoke. Her heart beat rhythmically. Each beat felt as though it broke another rib. Her brain told her to stay. Her brain told her to go. Her brain pleaded for a factor that would help her make a decision, to make it through, but it was fogged with indecisiveness. She breathed, took a final bittersweet look at her empty room, then she shut the door and went. She took each box to the car and shut the trunk. She sat in the back of the car, her parents up front, listening to music in her headphones. She wondered what she was going to do without her friends. When she closed her eyes and thought of what her new life would be like, she only saw studying alone in the too quiet library, watching too much Netflix, and going to class only to go back to her dorm over and over. She saw this scenario loop over and over behind her eyelids, loneliness. None of her friends were going to the same college as her. Then there was her best friend, Nora. Nora had gotten into the same college. They planned to go together, but in the end, Nora had chosen to go to a different one. Amelia had been so excited to spend this next portion of her life with Nora. Nora was the only comfort she had known, the only comfort that she was able to grasp and rely on. But Nora had to do what was best for her, and so she had chosen to go to a different college. Amelia then lashed out at Nora, and after they argued, Amelia remembered what her words were exactly. "That isn't fair, Nora. You're being selfish. We were supposed to do this together, weren't we?" Nora had then replied with the same vulgarity. They hadn't spoken since. On the car ride, Amelia tried to not to think about college, but she remembered everything. The amount of tears that rolled down her face when she and Nora fought, Nora's angry face, her own tears. She tried to pay attention to other things, how many bumps they hit on the way to her new school, how many red lights they stopped at, how long they stopped at them, but this didn't help. She remembered how happy she was throughout most of high school. She remembered that she didn't know anyone in her new school, which made the memory of Nora sting even more. Her parents tried at no avail to make her mood better. She insisted on staying in the back of the car. She wasn't interested in feeling better. She was interested in going back home, the only place she truly felt comfortable. Before they got out of town, they stopped to eat. Her parents waved her out of the car, but she stayed put. She insisted that she didn't want to get out. She didn't want to move out. Her parents insisted, however, and with a slow shuffle, she got out of the car and into the fast food restaurant. The welcome bell warned the employees of the family's presence, sending a ring that pierced the music playing into her ears in an effort to keep memories at bay. "What would you like?" her mother asked. "I don't know, just get me anything." She slowly paced to the rundown booths that had become familiar over the course of her life. The way the plastic-covered cushions are now cracked with age, revealing the plush material inside. The lights flickered just like they did when she was younger. She would wave her hand at it and exclaim she could control it. Water dripped from the missing ceiling tile into the empty metal pail, thunking into the pail over and over. It seemed annoying at first, but it helped Amelia remember why she loved it here in the first place. Despite its condition, it gave her a sense of peace that she can't describe. "Are you excited?" her mother asked. "I guess. I'm not exactly thrilled that I'm leaving everything and everyone I've grown to love." Her voice was incidentally vicious. She knew. "Sorry." She took one of her oversalted fries. "We worked hard for you to have this opportunity," her father said. "We want you to be excited. We are excited for you." She sipped on her Diet Coke. "I know, and am excited. It's just hard to be excited when I don't know what's going to happen." Her parents shared a look of worry and consolation. "We know it's hard. Transition and change are always difficult. The way things change, the way you can never have time back or change something you did. Nothing can be undone, but also we can do everything," her mother explained. Her mother's words filled her with uncertainty, but also comfort. I know that this is supposed to help me do what I want to do, but what if it doesn't work out? Her anxiety still controlled her. Then we will handle that circumstance if we reach it. Life is a step-by-step process. This is just a bigger step than most. She took a moment. She still felt her anxiety, but now she understood that anxiety. She understood why it was there. She understood that it was going to be okay. She thought she should text Nora. She thought that she should definitely apologize. The family walked back to the car. She sat in the back, got out her phone, then sent a text. I'm sorry for calling you selfish. I hope we can talk again. She held her phone hopeful, excited again, awaiting Nora's reply. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Piper Green, and I'll be reading 2 poems, the first of which is Ode to a Cherished Woman. Oh, I'm from Greenville. If I were to bash your skull open right here on the hot concrete, it would fracture apart to reveal a cavern of warm, glistening worms writhing in thought. To crack you like an egg would reveal a brilliance the world would never know again, small and blinding, the tiny squirming worms like silver knots of wisdom not yet in bloom, tying your hair to your skull. But I believe there's a fatty fold in each of our hearts that holds a universe where we can love each other. Come closer and you can hear mine, beating patiently in its cage, content to watch and wait for you. You, this world's secret treasure, the ocean beneath the slick of spillage. These fruits we eat like it's nothing, even though these may be the best days of our lives. If you asked me to rip my chest open so you could see inside, I would hasten a slit from my sternum to my belly button, but there'd be nothing but blood. Wormless blood, but I've got this heart, and I'll let you crush it in the palm of your hand if you promise to eat it after. The second one is titled Heifer. She'd always felt the eyes that followed her, pinned to her back like a grade school joke, tiny pinpricks of appraisal poking at her bare shoulders. The birds in the eaves twittered her name like a secret born to be told, her patent leather shoes with their shiny brass buckles, tinkling with every step. Joking, they said she should have been born a boy. She was lively, young, spirited, and plucky. Her purity made them ache. So they let her run amok and get the dresses dirty. They fed her, dressed her, and bathed her naked body, gently removing the dirt of the day, the green stains from her knees. She was a force to be reckoned with, they said. Marveling at her elastic, smooth skin, they cooed over the bathtub. When the big red meteor hit, a crater the size of a woman was left in its place. The town gazed at her, stunned for a few days, but eventually the crater, and the 2 craters within it where her breasts had grown, filled with rainwater, and the children swam in them. They felt unwieldy, like an artificial extension of her own free will. She noticed how eyes flickered up, down, up, her hips now some magnetic force attracting something she did not yet know. And she felt the eyes still, though differently this time. More than a prick, they pierced her milky white skin like a needle punctures fabric. They looked upon her as though they wished to suckle from her potential until drunk, forever, having sown the field in youth to now reap what they rightfully earned. The birds still twittered, but in hushed whispers, that youthful indulgence of her caretakers having soured into the appetite for legacy, the product of their labor. Ruffled dresses gave way to wool tunics and layers of loose fabric meant for a mother, not a girl. They gave her the children to nurse, to bathe, to prepare. They began coming up behind her and wrapping their arms around her waist, touching her like she was theirs because wasn't she? Eventually they cut from her their own, ripe for the picking. She looked into their eyes then, the ones that had peered down at her from the bathtub, the children she had nursed now staring dazedly back at her, those whom she raised now learning from their fathers how to sow the field and tend the crops. She was there when the mare gave birth. She saw the panicked look in her eyes. She knew it as a stare between 2 heifers trapped in an unrelenting heat. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Liam Conway. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, which I think is pretty relevant to this piece because things are getting pretty crazy up there in Rhode Island. This piece is a short story titled Smiling Through It. When the federal government collapsed, it was only fitting that state governments assumed responsibility for their populations and became new sovereign countries. Before this, everyone had been miserable. Constant political bickering, racism and bigotry of all kinds, wars on every horizon. Life was no fun anymore. While most of America was fragmented into dozens of states, some merged, most notably New York, who absorbed every northeastern state except for Rhode Island. New York's reason for sparing it had something to do with its total unimportance outside of shipmaking. So they made a deal with our governor to use any and all ports. So all ship products would feed directly into what used to be Massachusetts. Rhode Island's former government didn't last very long, though. It fell apart within a few nights. In the wake of its collapse, people asked what local departments seemed most sincere, most joyful, since fun and joy had been missing from our lives for so long. Naturally, the departments of Parks and Recreation came up and assumed immediate responsibility as head of Rhode Island. Parks and Rec took under their wing a dozen or so social programs, discussing every matter at Town Hall. Everyone was happy with the equal representation. Parks and Rec's first act as leader came in the form of a constitution. As we waited, we guessed what the new system would be. Maybe officials would be selected randomly from our small population, or maybe we'd be forced to board ocean liners and become a seafaring nation. But when the document was finally released, we couldn't have been more surprised. The new Constitution consisted of a single jingle accompanied by a 5-second tune. Everyone be nice. Everyone go hike. Everyone smile. Have fun by a mile. Maybe it had been the fact that times had been so rough for the past few years, but everyone accepted the change, the mandated hikes and the 2-hour workdays. The effects were immediate. I noticed everyone smiled more, and the youths I mentored didn't retort with snarky comments like they used to. They said, "We'd be happy to help, Mr. Summersby," instead of, "Screw off, old man." My wife and son told me how much I'd been glowing lately and that it must be from my early morning walks. People even began saying, "Have fun by a mile," when passing each other on the street. The first month or two were wonderful, but soon enough we began noticing problems. Crops withered and sagged back into the soil, gas stations always seemed to be out of gas, and no one could schedule a surgery for the life of them. The problem was, while everyone was having fun hiking, having picnics, and throwing frisbees, people were losing money. We realized we had to work, and when we went back to work, Parks and Recs was displeased. They established fun mandates and reverse curfews, forcing people outside and into parks. Go have fun, they said. Don't let the bad, unfun times return. Of course, the whole time everyone had to pay a toll to have fun, to take walks in the park or play basketball, and by the end of it, no one was having any fun at all. Things took a turn for the worse when Parks and Rec started working with Gunbird, the public safety department. They built guard towers and set up patrols in parks and city streets. This caused more than a few violent altercations when an overzealous Gunbird guard caught a citizen trying to go home before 9. There was also that time my friend was shot when he began fixing a broken chain on his bike. Another was sprayed with mace at a fun riot. Through all this, we kept up our smiles, afraid of getting gunned down or imprisoned for not having enough fun. This was also the time when Parks and Rec established an importance-based representation. We asked what that meant. How could one judge the importance of a department? Parks and Rec had an easy answer. Everyone else was below them. Not every department suffered from the changes, though. The entertainment district thrived under the new rule. When filming something, they were never taxed or asked to take a break. They could go on working for as long as they pleased. Meanwhile, everyone was struggling for hours, individually negotiating for just 30 minutes more. The agricultural sector was most concerned. Their president spoke on live TV once. "I like baseball as much as the next guy," he said, grinning horribly. "But all this fun is literally killing our crops. We need to be in the fields for longer." 2 hours is enough, Parks and Rec said. "Turn Field of Dreams back on or you'll be fined." All the while, Gunbird guards fought off anti-entertainment protesters. Families began to feel the strain too. When Parks and Rec first mandated 3 hours of family fun a day, I thought my life would be blissful. And it was fun until I realized I missed work and was bored of playing Monopoly with my wife and son. But what choice did I have? I smiled through it like everyone. Every week at work, my superior, who worked as the representative of the Youth Mentoring Center, complained to me about the government's failures. Parks and Rec and Gunbird, who became collectively known as the Block, had too much representative power and always voted together. Unless every other department voted against them, their bills and policies always passed. We won a small victory when Parks and Rec finally admitted that there were food shortages. The agricultural sector proposed more work hours, but were denied. Instead, funds allocated to farming equipment would be directed toward purchasing food from New York. While an imperfect solution, the amount of money the agricultural sector needed had decreased anyway, so we were willing to accept the roundabout way of feeding ourselves. This was about the time when departments started shutting down. First, it was everyone in STEM and the language department. There was never enough time to conduct research or read books in the midst of all the fun. The education division saw a drop in employees, and everyone seemed to be applying to the church, which hosted low-income events for mandatory fun hours. It was also about the time when the Rhode Island League of Workers formed. Some underling in the medical business suggested the idea of sneaking into work and getting in hours to keep operations running. Dr. Raymond, their superior, thought this idea was brilliant. The word quickly spread in small anti-block circles. The amount of remaining departments was half, so everyone against the block managed to keep shut about the business. Initially, the league only operated in the medical field. Fun-related injuries were increasing each year, tennis elbow, shin splints, and hospitals were sorely unaccommodating. The extra hours weren't for pay, but for the community's general welfare. But with everyone overdosing on fun all the time, workers didn't mind helping out. It wasn't long before other departments started their own league operations. Things grew until every department was working 4 hours a day instead of 2. Even the youth in my department joined in, working at the center instead of frolicking in fields like their activity sheets demanded. We were rebelling right under the block's nose. Naturally, our struggle came to light. We were insects under their floorboard, and the block peeled them back, prepared to squash us with their massive hiking boots. They were ruthless and tactical. They rounded us up and shipped us to coastal fun camps. From the outside looking in, it seemed like we were being rewarded. By then, the league was finished. The block cut the workday down to 1 hour, and everyone smiled about it. Our sentences were absurd, but they didn't separate my family. We received a meal a day with gallons of vitamin water. After eating, we put on sunscreen and went outside. We looked like wraiths in a play, running mechanically in a field and laughing at humorless jokes. A loudspeaker yelled out the nation's slogan while I threw a football with my son until I tore my shoulder. They didn't have any doctors to look at it. "Throw harder," a general said through a gritted smile. "Have fun by a mile," I replied, imagining that I was at work playing ball with a rowdy group of kids in an effort to straighten them out. The thought kept me fighting through the pain, looking at my son as if he was some goal to achieve, a purpose to strive for. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Finn, and if I seem a little off, during the reading, I had no idea what was going on in Rhode Island, and I didn't know this is how I would find out. And so, yeah, this is Shell of a Man by me. Not in the sense that I'm an empty husk or the shell of my former self. I feel like I have the soul, if that even is anything, of a woman in the body of a man. I don't really think I'm trans or in the wrong body. I enjoy my face and the little hairs that peek up above the surface. I appreciate my body, and I can touch my penis without feeling shame or any form of dysphoria or dysmorphia, whichever one is applicable. In all honesty, I quite enjoy my penis. I appreciate my skinny, weird teenage guy arms. I like my hairy legs and body. I occasionally will picture myself in a woman's body, or a more feminine one at that. I don't enjoy the image. No offense to any twinks in the audience. And I know the demographic of the school. It's about 50-50. I don't think it's the right look for me. My therapist tells me that when I get angry, I don't act like myself. It's not something I do on purpose. I don't like that I intimidate people, but I like that I have the option. Finn, you feel so strongly about the smallest things, and you yell, and I feel like you don't realize how you look. You're a tall man, and you could easily beat me up. I know you're a sweet person, but no one can see you like that when you react. I don't like that I intimidate my therapist. I just like that I'm strong enough to do so. If someone ever tries to kidnap me, I could fight back with my exterior of a man. This hasn't come up, and the only real benefit is sometimes refund requests go very smoothly for me. Sometimes I like to speculate what it would be like if I was in the body of a woman. I think I'd be seen as a major bitch, but I get away with being shitty sometimes because no one really acknowledges a bitter, angry man. They tend to brood in the corners, like an Irish guy with black hair. I enjoy both sides of my whole self with the body of a man. I acknowledge I am both, but not in a non-binary or gender fluid way. More in the sense that I am a hermit crab, and my body is a shell. Or better yet, the sides don't mix and blend together like two paints making a new color. It's together like oil and water in the same jar. They're together in the same medium, but they are distinct, one layer on top of another. You could shake the glass or mix them together, but eventually the oil will float above the water, and looking down into the glass, people only see the first layer. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Jane Lawrence, and I'm from Clemson. Today, I will be reading an excerpt of a short story entitled You Must Remember This. In this short story, we examine a rather twisted character named Stephanie and her relationship with her ex. And in this piece, Stephanie has taken a job at a dementia care facility that she is highly unqualified for. Stephanie grew sour. She started to daydream, a word that suggests sleepy afternoon musings when one feels like a lining of gelatin has grown into the grooves of their skull. But Stephanie's thoughts were more comparable to peanut butter at best, or pitch. She hoped that maybe one of the residents would snap, flip a table, having regained all the awareness they'd lost, and condemn the entire institution to hell for having held them for so long, but be sedated or without family to sign them free. Of her coworkers, she thought of scandal. When any of the other aides were more than a minute or two behind to start their shift, her mind went to molestation. One of them, she was sure, had to be a porn addict, had to have boxes of nude photos just waiting to be discovered by the police. They were all late because they'd been arrested, until they arrived and attributed the tardies to traffic or other day-to-day dullness. Stephanie was bored. She and Travis began speaking once more. The game she'd begun at work didn't need to end when she left the lobby, she reasoned. She phoned Travis every evening as she left the residence for home during those weeks, said her "hello, how are yous" while she zipped her coat. Their conversations seemed to almost mirror her walk. It took her traipsing from 80th to the bus stop for Travis to finish telling her about his day, and then from the bus stop to the bodega that always reeked of urine, she'd talk about hers. For every date Travis detailed, she had another, more elusive and exciting one to strike back with. In truth, Stephanie hadn't been on a date since her last with him. The only men she was spending time with now were the male residents, but she kept this intentionally unclear. "I spent the afternoon with Theo today," Stephanie once said. "Theo?" Travis replied. "Haven't heard about him before," his tone cool. Stephanie imagined that this was quite difficult for him. She fantasized that there was something more enticing about her those days that kept Travis answering her calls, that he'd become convinced that she'd found a suitor, someone new, that he pictured some tall grad student when she spoke of Theo, someone at Columbia studying something impractical but sexy, the kind of guy who wore collared shirts beneath holey wool sweaters and carried his books in a satchel. Stephanie's Theo had indeed attended Columbia, then taught there for some 50 years before developing the Alzheimer's he was housed for. "Oh, I've mentioned him before," Stephanie said. "And today, he was just so funny. I said to him, 'Theo, your wife came by today. Isn't that nice?' What? Well, his wife never did come by. Stephanie reached her stoop, and Travis was left to lick his wounds. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wolfgang Perret, and I'm from Charleston. Thank you guys so much for coming. Today I'm going to be reading 2 poems, and the first one is titled Untitled. I regret to inform you that I am giving up. All I have made are squishy, half-orphan animals. All I have made are almost sentient babies popping electric fingers into outlet mouths. What kind of make-thing am I? I leave everything unfinished. But that's my right. I start at a mouthful when nibbling is best. I thin the earth's fuzzy hair crust with useless pawfuls of art-red clay. Everything I have made is of the same half-baked hoping sculpt. Over and over again, I disappoint myself when rain melts my yards of creatures into dead little soup puddles of we shoulds and I wills, and bitiest of all, the I'm almost done's. The crumb stacks I've torn deep dirt pores for, the projects I've left weepy and still digging in the pit of pits. I used to wonder why I could never stitch any final threads, or even clamp them between the boxes of my tinny thimbles, fumbling claws. I think it's some type of curse, not from the pickling drink in a gaudy black pot, though if I did live in the time of witches, I could imagine I would think so, pouting over bowls of half-stirred porridge and nearly whittled tiny horse faces. Sorry. But I would have a hag to blame. Here the only hag is the little flea piloting me, something wallpapered soggy over my middle meat, some secret useless vital organ pumping out failures that will keep its chloroplasts clean and intact, even as I'm bundled in my blue dress for cremation. I know something will leave me half dust, half done, an earlobe and an eyeball squatting by the waist of my open urn. I couldn't even finish burning. I have made myself my own scrapyard. Look at my piles of dirt and realize I am giving up, not now, but constantly. My second poem is entitled Ode to eBay. Oh, what beautiful brothers of mine unplug red tunnels. Sap-syruped little spirals mark the faces of their fingers. They've mastered digging homes in this lardy whale digital carcass, like children tracking boogers in white fossil sand. Its body to any passing beach bum is a wet blue boulder full of holes. Silicone beehive, $1 trillion, vintage and harshly used. But for so long I've craved you, my flea friends, my soap aura pirates bartering from ground beef. You pack snake cords of sweater yarn into these corpse shop pockets like God knitting man's first intestines. One more plate, one more cup, one more antique spoon from Eaglewood. That is, the town Eaglewood, not the Woodwood Eaglewood. Search it correctly now, beautiful scavenger. Were you someone else before you named yourself? Before you sunk your boxy clogs and car parts, fang first into the meat of this market mush fish, this beached whale, eBay, were you pilgrims? The world is full of so many pilgrims. I can only speak for the 8 billion when I say we are bartering animals. Here is what I want. Peel yourselves from the warmth and come with me to the creek. We'll wait and stand, cuddled in crowd. There are men in scarves up to their eyelashes. Everyone is bundled in the fur of another. In the counter-cold, marshy smell, we'll look lost and saucer-eyed as flight-missing children because the sun is setting, but still we play cards around our junk piles, talk in cotton-soft whispers about anything 2 collectors can. But right before the moon, cheap lump pearl leaves everything dark green and milky, and squinting helps none see our field or field bird better, and my brothers, oh, my brothers, start to bite their mouth meat in worry sweats, talking that our traders will never come. Right before it all, you will see 100 million angels come marching in long-lost woolen socks and pants and pecking kisses soft on the faces of grizzled travelers. You will remember who you are when you see the tchotchkes pulled from pockets over soup-warm beating organs. Because how can we pay each other knowing we are all the same naked limmy thing beneath our glitter hoards? Is there not something tender in that greed and advertising to each other? If you look into our barter crowd, angels and sweater men and devoted feelers of human to human, one-to-one want, can you tell me it unused? Can you tell me when my trading hands warmth skins yours, when you sleep through seasons on my shelf, can you tell me you don't feel Dionysus? Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Tegan Edwards. I'm from Columbia, and today I will be reading a poem entitled A Million Little Edens. Walk with me, friend, through the red wasteland of our Saturn. Let me tell you a story by way of answering your questions. One where a million little Edens still bring color to my eyes until they fade again. This is not mere cataracts, friend. It's the remembering that's getting harder, not the seeing. But for a story, all I need is a voice, a song I've held at bay for far too long, for I'm far too old for reluctance. Back on Earth, the one wrapped in green, there's the Eden that lives in the eyes of the beholder, beating engines, breeding steam, a new New Orleans built to towering atop the waterlogged corpse of a ramshackle giant, once the bootleg French capital of a newborn Enlightenment's overseas escapade. But this is not that city. This city's raised highway is mounted on the brazed backbone of that placated giant, and the skyline does still follow the path of that once mighty Mississippi, and they do baptize it new every spring when the ice melts. But then there is the difference. The bayou caked in snow, flowery and crumbling by February, yet the rain-turned snow falling still, beating in from the sea far below, the winds only growing with altitude, past the half-shouldered flood walls of the old city, where nature and man made their final stands, raised concrete and steel in the third millennium, numbered in centuries instead of eons. We would not have made it out alive, friend. We would have sunk into that bayou like the island, once a volcano, sinks back into the sea again, though they call it ocean there, and those who witness it call it a second Eden. It's the one with the white-hot sun, the air on fire, thick with honey. They call it humidity. And then there's the chanting, because this is not just any volcanic island. It starts as the moon rises and goes on till it sets, on the water, always on the water, with its spluttery dip, never seeming to move, yet vanishing by sunrise all the same. Can you hear it? Oh, of course you can. The same way the wind is all you can hear on Saturn. They'll tell you it's just the space air. Don't believe them. They're weasels in kittens' clothing. But their music, oh, their music, it's just to die for. You're new, but you'll learn when to listen. Until you do, we'll have a seat. And then you must stay for lunch and midday tea. And then there's the dinner to prepare for. And oh dear, is that the time? You know how scatty I can be. It's almost sunset, and you'll soon know what happens then. The sun rarely sets here, and there's always one moon or another domineering the sky, so a true nocturne is all the more special. We'll go for a stroll. It'll give us more time for your questions. There's a walking trail right along the Red Wind Ocean. They call it Third Eden. Charming, right? Like one of those 8 wonders. Brighter, though, colorful. They say it's haunted, but not the kind of haunting that counts. And then you know how they can be. Oh, you, stop it. But anyway, you came here for a story, if you'll just quiet down a moment. You'll end up singing for a year from a throat dipped in honey, the way they used to do it in Paris when the war was on and half the population had nothing to do but sing and sway and turn their faces skyward at the sound of bomber planes. A fourth Eden wrapped in time, like one of those mummies in one of those old motion pictures they liked to watch. They lost all their colonies by then. Some said they were never theirs to begin with. Others said it was all French in the beginning, before the fall. None of them talked about the ocean in those days. It was a sore subject, what with the flooding and talk of artificial ice. Venice was already gone, the ice caps too, though no one talked about them much. Hard to talk about a place without a proper name. Easier to forget about it, too. But they were not content with that. That's when they started building up into the sky on towers of iron, steel, whatever. They hewn huge windows into the walls so they could see the clouds because there was nothing else to look at, all the while reminiscing about the more beautiful times while the Alps half melted, Everest a pile of dirt-blackened mush. I'm afraid we overcompensated, friend, and they're both solid to the touch now, like well-blown glass, pretty in a deadly sort of way, though they didn't like to see the lovely in it then. Instead, they wrote of mountains blue as sky, green as grass. Have you heard of grass? They liked it because it was green, like summer, like oak trees, or maybe it was birch, because it smelled like a fifth Eden, whatever Eden smells like. You know how it can get, all foggy. I'm there one second, and the next, here and there, but a different there, a different then, no, the same then, with the singing and the swaying and the green and blue and birch trees. But then they liked other colors too, painted portraits of fresh white lilies on antique tables, fields of orange stalks along the backs of blue-ridged mountains, silver ponds lit by unseen moons. I've seen 100 moons, but none can hold a candle to that one. Our moon. Now that was Eden. Thank you.
Hello, my name's CJ. I'm from Quahog, Rhode Island, and I read this story last month. I read an excerpt from it, and I'm going to read the whole thing this time. This is Los, spelled L-O-S, City. Yeah. Former United States President Donald Trump got out of prison in 2030 and made a list of Americans to apologize to. The political climate of the day was best described as a cause and effect of the climate of before. The Earth's climate could be described the same way. At this point, if you made small talk with the average American and your lips even vibrated at the frequency of any sort of question, the response would most likely be, not good, not good. And they would shake their heads. They made bulletproof umbrellas now. Polar bears have become an ocean-dwelling species. The cost of shit was like way the fuck up. It was all along the stream of causality, and at the bank of it was Trump. He felt bad. Even if it went on to the end of his life, it was time to make amends. So he made the amends on copy paper and wrote it with an extra thick lead edition BIC mechanical pencil. He spent an entire day on the list before he realized how much longer he still had to go and that it was about time to actually start crossing names out. The first name lived in Los Santa, Florida. It was a beach town currently swamped by storm surge. The first name took an hour to respond to Trump's email and asked to meet at Abuelita's Diner on Lorraine Parkway. It was the only diner with power in town. Trump flew down to Mar-a-Lago, still in its great hurricane-proof dome. He took the 2016 Toyota Prius down the interstate to Los Santa. He'd recognized this exit. He'd passed by here on his way to Barron's Junior Golf Championship back in the day. He remembered significantly less lanes and there actually being other cars in them. He remembered less debris, and he remembered these trees standing upright. The Prius had no trouble swerving around, but it wasn't built for this floodwater. It left a motorboat-like ripple in its wake. Palm fronds lay dead across the roof of Abuelita's Diner, and instead of shade, they coated the aquatic parking lot in a lime green light. Trump made out what looked like the white paint of a parking spot. He plunged out of the car and waded through the guppies and tadpoles. Inside, the water still made it up to your ankles. The staff cleaned by squirting dish soap downwards. You could still make out the checkerboard tile crystal clear. The booths were packed full of denim and faded polo shirts, all young people. It was strange. These were the most signs of life he'd seen since the interstate was dry. Nobody here seemed happy to see Trump, but neither was anyone particularly interested. They just gave him the side eye before returning to their flapjacks and crossword puzzles. The man Trump was here to meet got a booth in the back, between two windows in the sun and beneath a decorative collage of Florida license plates. Aaron Aardvark? Asked Trump. Donald Trump? Asked Aaron. He was also a young man, a new man, in fact. Couldn't be a day over 20. He was dressed in a white button-down, tie, and slacks rolled up to his knees. His socks and shoes sat next to him in the booth. "It's nice to meet you," Trump said. He reached out to shake hands. Aaron's grip was tired and sunburned to the touch. It was abundantly clear that the past decade had not been kind to this kid. Trump had started to say something formal about why he wanted to meet specifically Aaron this morning, and Aaron interrupted. He immediately knew why specifically he was here. He'd gotten comfortable being the first of every list since pre-K. He'd explained he was so weary of getting caught off guard by teachers and then bosses taking roll call that he developed a foresight of when to prepare your mouth for the word present. He said it was like being able to taste the rain. Abuelita and Yellow Rain Boots came by and asked if she could get the table anything to drink. Aaron ordered a cup of coffee and Trump ordered a glass of orange juice. There was silence before Abuelita brought out the stuff. Aaron swirled the coffee like hot and cold air chasing each other around. He sipped the coffee, but stuck out his bottom teeth too much. The scalding bile made like any liquid in a colander and slipped through the bony cracks and burnt Aaron's chin. The mug was logged up and out of his grip, and it plunged into the diner tile ecosystem. Black coffee formed a dark, expanding cloud around the little fishes. They panicked like, "Why is my home suddenly so hot?" And "Ma, I can't see you, Ma." Trump watched as they darted after the familiar yellow shine of Abuelita's boots and swam after her, trudging to the next customer. Aaron oohed and awed in pain and dabbed his chin with a wet napkin. Trump asked if he was okay and offered to go get him an ice water. Aaron said, "Don't worry, he was all right." He tapped his chin and winced. Trump studied him for a second. He looked into Aaron's eyes and said, "Sir, I really don't mean to overreach and act like I know how you feel, but you don't look all right." Aaron thought about this for a moment. His head fell to the table. His arms tried to catch his head, but they were obviously too late, so they just sort of spooned it. Trump didn't know what to do with his own arms. He decided on balling up his fists so that his knuckles faced the ceiling and his elbows out to his side like he was about to do the chicken dance. After a while like this, Trump took a big swig of OJ, tilted Aaron's head up, and said to him that he was sorry. He repeated himself, louder. In Trump's hands, Aaron was like, "No, I didn't want to admit it to myself, but you're right." And Trump was like, "No, I mean I'm sorry for all the heinous things said, for every step backwards, for being the cause." He reached into his pocket and unfolded a written statement. He personally felt the need to get specific. He descended the page with that hindsight flavor of vigor. Every land-dwelling eye in the diner was on Trump. He stood up in his booth. He paused only to order the red, white, and blue flapjacks. He ended with, "Aaron Aardvark, I want to ask, what is it that I can still do for you? How much does Lost Santa need?" Everybody rolled their eyes and resumed their breakfast. Aaron put his head back in his arms. Trump had this confused look on his face. He didn't sit back down for a moment. Instead, he observed the diner from overhead. This place was weird. Everything moved and ate with a sad, content synchronicity. Aaron made a muffled sound from the burrow of his wrists. Said Trump. Aaron repeated himself. "We don't need anything. Sit down." Aaron asked Trump to look out the window. How were there so many young people in this building and only one Prius out there? Trump listened as Aaron explained that the young people, the only people who still lived in Lost Santa, have taken the pontoon boats weekends used to be spent on and turned them into a carpooling service. The old money and their grandkids evacuated all the Audis and Porsches. We pontooned to work and we learned to be electricians through trial and error. We're pretty sure the life expectancy has gone down. We 20-somethings only work and drink anymore. We work because we have to. In the library, Aaron himself worked to communicate with the other storm surge towns. They focused all the power towards the computers and left none for air conditioning. The bottom-shelved books had dissolved into a sort of papier-mâché swamp. There was a gaping hole in the ceiling where the sun beat down on him all day. He was supposed to be a Hollywood magazine columnist. This is how he was forced to evolve. He dressed business casual by choice. Abuelita was back with the pancakes. That's a lot for a young man to have to go through, Trump said. Abuelita explained that it was what all young people of Los Santa were forced to go through. This was their future now. Your money can't help us, she said. Think of this city as a porch, and you just discovered a family of possums living under it, and you go to the exterminator and get this possum poison. And you come back with the possum poison, but the possums have mutated to quadruple the size and rented the attic out to a family of bats, and the living room has flooded and become an ecosystem of fishes, and there's even a polar bear living in your house now. Possum poison isn't gonna cut it anymore. This porch is on a new trajectory. Find somewhere else to live, essay, Aaron told Trump. And Aaron told Trump that he accepted his apology. Trump picked up the check for Aaron and asked Abuelita to box up the rest of his breakfast. He found that the fishes had been nibbling at his feet and took care of all the dead old man's skin. He turned the key in the Prius ignition and it made a bubbling sound. Water in the exhaust. He hitched a ride on the next available pontoon. Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, I think I could take you there, said the boatman, bottle of absinthe in hand. There was apparently a party tonight at a vacant luxury condo. 17 other young people on the pontoon had been waiting for this all week. Aaron was attempting a flirt at this brunette flapper in a work vest. Trump felt the salty afternoon breeze in his golden comb-over. He took his shirt off and tied it around his waist. He felt the copy paper list in the shirt pocket. It had a plaid pattern of creases. It was crusty with sweat and tough to unfold. He stared at that first name and contemplated. Did this constitute a crossing off? Were there other communes like this popping up across America? Was this the way the country was going? Mar-a-Lago, the boatman said. He then repeated himself, this time with a question mark. Trump dropped the list. Shards of glass floated everywhere. The hurricane-proof dome had been shattered. The clubhouse was this wrong color of bad turquoise. Golf courses were unsleeved of turf. Various invasive animals played in the muddy hills. Housekeeping was on top of the building, swinging at shingles with irons and drivers. Some of them stopped to acknowledge their former president. Silhouettes of shiny-eyed whippersnappers clung to the walls like goblins. The sky was getting darker and thunder started to boom. The storm was back and ready to change more things. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Liv Waller, and I'm going to be reading a piece of nonfiction. This year in nonfiction, we've been writing chapbooks, so like a lot of short essays that all have a common theme. And my common theme is that each of my pieces begin with a lyric from a Leonard Cohen song. And he has a song called The Stranger Song, so I thought that that would be a good opportunity to talk about some strangers. The Stranger Song. Like any dealer, he was watching for the card that is so high and wild, he'll never need to deal another. Leonard Cohen, The Stranger Song. The man who did my nails 4 times that one summer, whose name, if I'd ever asked, would probably have been Jim or Tim or something like that, whose real name I wouldn't have been able to pronounce, whose hands were so soft they felt like nothing, whose daughter toddled around the salon, smiling and stomping and making lots of little kid noise, who scolded me for ripping apart my cuticles, who glued my broken nail and wouldn't take my money, who tried to explain to me, after a woman with brittle hair yelled at him in front of everyone, that the oil softens the skin and that's why they don't soak the fingers, who told me I was so nice, I was making him feel better already. The woman who trained me at the summer job I hated, who stood behind me at the kiosk when really she should have been sitting, pregnant as she was, while I tried to memorize the colored buttons on the register, mastering first the sequence of Maine, then grill, then lobster roll, remembering sometimes to ask if they wanted the special that comes with fries, who reached over my shoulder every time I forgot the button that tells the kitchen to wait 7 minutes for the sauteed veggies or the broiled scrod or whatever, who told me never to have kids if I thought even a little that I might not want them, whose fourth was on the way, who told me life goes fast, who told me about her sister and her sister's third husband who was hitting her, who told me to go to college, who told me to not forget myself. The girl who was too old for me to be babysitting, who felt dumb because her brother went to a gifted kids school, who told me about all the boys in our neighborhood, like the boy who told her she had a bat in the cave in front of all her friends, and the boy who hit golf balls in his yard all day, and the boy she had a crush on that I wasn't allowed to talk about, who paced around the living room before sitting close and asking me to share my secrets, who was so much smarter than her brother, really, in a way that's hard to describe, who knew how to make her frenzied dog calm down, who knew how to be okay when nothing happened. Her dad, who looked at me from across the kitchen island and said, "A writer, really?" and showed me where the oven mitts were, who took the pizza out of the oven anyway and moved past me to set it down, who had nothing about him except disconcerting eyes. The men standing around outside the very slow elevator that night we wanted to go to the hotel rooftop, who first tried to talk to us and then, when we didn't respond, talked to each other about us. How old do you think they are? 18? Well, that one could be 19. Who opened their arms and said, "Ladies first," when it arrived. The man who asked us why the fuck we were smoking a cigarette in the stairs, who we asked why he was wearing that stupid hat. The people who moved all the tables together at the coffee shop to talk about their mind's eye. If I tell you about a field and a sunflower, can you see it? Can you touch it? What do your dreams look like? Whose voice do you hear in your head? The children I will probably have, the people I'll fall in love with, the people who will say the things I'll never forget, that I'm beautiful, or that I'm a bitch, or that I have perfect fingernails, or anything else I could never predict. I'll turn them over one by one, these moments, these faces, card by card. There are more arrangements of a deck of 52 than all the lives that have ever been. Every man, every child, every lobster, every sunflower, every dying cigarette. No one deck in its perfect and random order is ever seen again. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Spencer Watson. I am from a magically bland town called Anderson, South Carolina. And I'm reading a piece of nonfiction from the Chapbook Project, and my overarching theme is like ruminations on the word good and what it means. And this piece is called A Good Thing. I am not the guitar in my father's living room, resting in its stand like a sigh at the end of the day. I have not been privy to those late night gigs, those Saturday nights when he doesn't get back until midnight. I have not calloused his once soft boy fingers. I am not the rug of my childhood bedroom, fringed and stained from years of teenage girl reverse metamorphosis, where the butterfly is the butter blonde toddler in the snow, still smiling in pictures on the wall, and the caterpillar is a mature, heavier thing. I am not the body of Christ, like the pastor told us all children of God are. And Isaac Dudley called dibs on being the left pinky toe of Christ. And I giggled and said something like, "Ew, I bet God's toes are gross like yours." I am not the elastic insides of a God I don't understand, to be moved and stretched at will, to snap back in place when asked. I am not the dog from the neighborhood by the pond, who runs away every week and is always returned to her owner, who hasn't bothered to fix the hole in his fence. I am not that dog who keeps running and getting scooped up from the porch of a stranger's home, who doesn't know when to quit or how to learn to never stop and beg for pity. I am not that dog, but when she curls up on my porch, I pet her, whisper the name I gave her, tell her she'll be all right. These are not good things, and it is a good thing I am not them, because I am more like a rain cloud, dropping streaks of lightning like a promise, something a close friend said I resemble, defending me after a boy said he liked that I was small and weak. Or maybe I am like a Georgia peach, like that illegal sweet sip I took at a family dinner once. Maybe I am something intoxicating and alluring and pleasing on the tongue. Maybe I am like a tube of E6000, the kind that remains on your fingertips, the kind that won't leave you for days after you use it. These are good things. Thank you.
That was really incredible. Another hand for these amazing students. And I want to say thank you to my colleagues, Scott Gould right over here, Emily Cinquemani right over here, and Austin Wilson somewhere in the ether. He just disperses when he leaves. Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you all at Taco Bell soon. Bye.